All right, hey guys, Stefan here again. Monday morning, about 9:20 a.m. I have a pretty hard stop around 11, so it means I've got about an hour and 40 minutes to continue with this work on the unique mechanism. So we did a chunk of it yesterday. In about an hour and 15 minutes, we kind of went through the mechanism of the problem. Now we're going to go a little deeper on that by adding science and look at the unique mechanism of the solution. And I'll be honest with you, I'm still waking up. I used to be more of like a morning person. Now I feel like I'm more effective in the afternoons. So what that means is I'm not even that sharp right now. And but rather than wait till I'm super sharp to film this, it was like, let's just start filming while I'm still kind of waking up. And let's see if this process can get me to a better, can stimulate me and get me going. So first thing I wanted to do was kind of review what I looked at and what I did yesterday. And this is honestly more for me than for you, because if you're watching this, you might be watching these videos back and forth, back to back, and already kind of, so you're gonna be annoyed by it, but this is what I would be doing. This is what I am doing, right? I gotta go back and look at what I wrote, my ideas and everything. And then from there, I'm gonna look at how to, and then try and get this part done before my 11 o'clock. With the goal being that I can then start on the brief. And I'd like to have the brief done today too. So, right, so we looked at what's the pain point, what is the problem? Because we're going to get the unique mechanism behind the problem and the unique mechanism behind the solution, but the first thing we have to answer is what's the problem, right? And again, if we're summing up, it's that they're overweight now, it's affecting their personal life and threatening their health. They've tried different diets in the past and never had long-term success. Right? The unique mechanism behind the problem, we're going to go with addiction. So you're addicted to foods that are making you fat. Sugar makes you fat and it's addictive. High blood sugar, addictive. Let's write this so it makes a little more sense. So what's the proof on this? Well, high blood sugar, when you have high blood sugar, body creates insulin. Sugar is stored as glycogen or burned as energy or stored as fat. You never really see skinny type 2 diabetics. Most people's bodies run this way, so more sugar equals, let's put it this way here, eating more sugar equals higher blood sugar equals more insulin equals more stored body fat equals insulin resistance, diabetes. Point that for now. I'm still going to come in and improve upon this science in a little bit. Okay, sugar makes you fat and it's addictive. You might not realize that most carbs are turned into sugar, but we're going to talk about that, especially starches, and then sugars are, some sugar are carbs, and then starches are which are a form of carb or also sugar. So it's really simple carbs, and that's the issue there. So sugar makes you fat, carbs make you fat too. Same thing, because carbs are broken down into sugar, at least most carbs. Could even say that, but yeah, why most carbs make them fat too. Right, so it now makes sense why some people have such a hard time giving up bread, pasta, dairy, cereal, chips, and other carb-heavy foods. People talk about it being the salt or the sauce or the texture. As far as this is about the foods that they like, right? So, I like salty foods. I like chips, but nah, it's not even salt. You're not addicted to salt. You're addicted to sugar. Carbs are at the foundation of those things, and they're addictive and keeping you fat again, right? So, the truth is, this addiction is why you've never been able to lose weight you wanted to, or to keep it off for good. Because low fat is bullshit, because high carbs, equal sugar, equal fat, and addiction, right? Atkins and other low carb diets, a lot of them don't work long term because they have you start reintroducing carbs. That's like reintroducing heroin to an addict, just a little at a time. Same reason a lot of people say that they lose a lot of weight on Atkins to start, but then it stops working, and it stops working. The point where it usually stops working is when they start introducing carbs back in moderation, because it's like giving a little heroin to a heroin addict. Cutting calories doesn't work because of the same reason. You're saying, instead of a lot of heroin, I'm just going to do a little heroin, But when something's addictive, the moderation doesn't last. Because again, if you're cutting calories, but you're not cutting carbs, it's like I could do 1,000 or let's call it, 1,200 calories a day, and they're all from carbs, and I'm still gonna feel like shit, and I'm gonna be hungry, and this will be a whole vicious cycle. Same with Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, Nutrisystems, all those things, fewer calories, fewer grams of fat, but they're not kind of addictive carbs and sugar. And so then we kind of looked at some of the additional components of the addictive aspect, right? Like the triggers, people who eat emotionally, people who eat to cover up problems and pain, which is, I guess, emotional, is all masking pain. And so, same reasons when a drug addict uses drugs, or if they relapse after a traumatic event, like a death of a close family member. And same thing with people, they're trying to diet, they break their diet when they're out at a restaurant or a party or with a group of friends, whatever. Everyone else is doing it, so they cut loose. Same thing where a drug addict might relapse, a party where everyone's doing cocaine, so they decide it's okay to do cocaine too. Right, it's the link, sugar, carb addiction, and other addictions. But the important thing there is it's not their fault, because it's not an addict's fault, right? I mean, you can be frustrated with an addict, and I get it. Addiction is a terrible and awful disease. But it's the same thing with sugar and carb. I mean, it's the same thing. It's a terrible and awful disease, right? And I had the story idea, which I might work with, which is that, woman's at mom's funeral. There's a cake. She's on a diet and has lost some weight and feeling good. She doesn't eat the funeral, but the cake comes back to her house because the family and friends are staying and visiting. And the night she sneaks down, needs to whole rest the cake in between tears. Next day, let's say people are all like asking about the cake. People are asking about the cake, and she's embarrassed to tell them it's gone. She lies and says she forgot to refrigerate it and threw it out. People don't believe her. This should make her stop, but instead she can't. She goes on a sugar and junk food bender. It's emotional eating, it's addictive behavior, it's a massive pain. She knows on some level, but she quiets the voice, gives into her urges. Maybe until something even more awful happens, right? Okay. So, the unique mechanism behind the problem is that you're literally addicted to sugar and carbs. It's not that it's hard not to eat them. It's not that anything else. Is that you are an addict and you might not realize it. So the unique mechanism behind the solution is to break the addiction, right? If the problem is an addiction, the solution is to break or free yourself of the addiction. And you're doing this by, powering your bodies with something other than sugar and carbs, right? So I think I can make this more clear, right? But basically, like a drug addict, they go to rehab. They could go to rehab and go through withdrawal. They can do AA, but the kind of best way for a lot of people to break an addiction is to replace it with a different addiction, or to replace it with a healthier habit. I guess we won't say a different addiction, like working out, exercise, whatever. And so it's the same way a former drug addict, right, replaces, drugs of exercise or marathon, or an ex-alcoholic takes up a painting or volunteers, whatever. But in the case of carb and fat addictions, I don't know if I'm going to put this here. Sorry, carb and sugar. To break free is by replacing them with something healthier and better that doesn't put them through horrible withdrawals. I guess withdrawals. Specifically replacing carbs and sugars with fats and ketones. Why fats and ketones? So this is where I got to flesh this all out a little bit. Your body's like an engine, it needs energy to run. You can either run it gets energy from carbs and sugar, or you can get it from fats and ketones. You already know what happens when your body runs on carbs and sugars. It's addictive, like a drug, short-term highs, long-term crashes. You store fat or long-term body damage, poor sleep, you have a really foggy brain. What happens when it runs on fats and ketones? Not addictive, long-term energy, long-term better mood, much better, long-term, but it's better mood, much better mental. Yeah, I guess I get sustainably. Much better mental focus, sharper brain, burn fat, get skinnier, better sleep versus body damage. How do you switch fuel sources? That's what ketogenic does. You switch from running on carbs to running on fats. A couple more thoughts are for the product, right? Product, real quick. Do we tell them to make the switch immediately and drastically, or will that cause shock, like when an alcoholic gives up drinking cold turkey, or a heroin addict gives up heroin cold turkey? I think I know they want fast weight loss results, so they want fast weight loss results. That we know. Which means cutting back on carbs, sugars, fast. How do we reconcile that? Now, I have ideas, so that's good. Okay, so I'm going to go through here now, and I'm going to look at some ideas I'm going to flesh this out a little bit more with some science and stuff. I'm going to probably pause while I do part of it, but you've got the timer, it's 9:31. I'm actually going to take a leak real quick and then come back and do it. One thing you'll notice here, I mean, assuming this doesn't all just go to shit, and I sure hope it doesn't, one thing you'll notice is, like, it's actually nice because I really want to get the sales letter finished this week, and today's Monday. I'd like to have it done by Thursday, in fact. And you might be thinking, wow, but you're only here. But we're getting through a lot of the hard stuff. And again, it's only taken like a handful of hours. So anyway, knowing that it's modular, because there's a research component, the mechanism component, the brief component, and then the copy component, is really solid, because instead of me feeling like overwhelmed, like I only have an hour and a half to work today on this, I'm like, well, in an hour and a half, I should be able to get done with the entire mechanism. And like I said, if I work an hour on this later today, the brief should really only take like an hour to 2 hours at most. So that means by tomorrow I can start writing, and I've got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to write all day, although I'm probably realistically going to allocate about 2 to 3 hours per day, 9 hours to write the sales letter, which I think should be fine. Because again, there's a template and outline, it's pretty formulaic. So that's where we're at right now. I'll be back in a little bit, and I'm just going to pause for now. Hey guys, so I'm back. You'll see the time is 3:43 p.m. and you're probably wondering, wow, it took you all that time. And the answer is no. I literally have worked on this for about 15 minutes since my video this morning, like 9 minutes, or like 9 something, which is super frustrating, but it is what it is right now. I mean, it's one of those days. It's the Monday after TNC, so pretty much after I pause, and I'm fighting off being sick too, which you can probably hear in my voice, but like right after I pause, people start coming to my office, like a bunch of people. Then I had an 11 o'clock that went till 1:45, and then I had a 2 o'clock. Then I had to deal with some different stuff. Actually did another call at like 3 o'clock. So yeah, I'm getting started again here. I've done about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I do have some cool stuff to show you, but you'll have to take my word for it. It's only been 15 or 20 minutes. And to be completely honest with you, in a situation like this too, where it's like, I was definitely feeling kind of overwhelmed, frustrated, irritable, because it's like, man, I want to write copy and the world keeps throwing shit at me. Plus I don't feel great. I could go and go to rest, but having this video helps. And I just quit Skype, turned my phone upside down. I guess I quit Skype, isn't I close Skype? Hiding my tabs with all my kind of work-related stuff. I was like, all right, let me see what I can do in an hour. So my goal here is to finish by 5. So it's been really about like an hour and 30 minutes that I worked on this today. And I still want to finish the mechanism. If I start feeling better, then I'll do the brief too, but at least the mechanism. So I did find some cool stuff. So again, So where we left off. Again, I'm not going to go recap it because this is the same video from when I paused earlier, so to you it's still super fresh. What I'm trying to do is find, proof that sugar makes you addictive. So I Googled stuff. I'm here now, but I was kind of, sugar addiction. I found this really good thing from Dr. Hyman that is great. So it's talking about sugar addiction here. It's a doctor, so pretty good. Good amount of views too, 229,000 views. And it's all about the addiction of sugar. And basically, as I went through it, I read the best part. Okay, I guess there's a study here that looked at the biology of sugar addiction. Okay, so they did a randomized, blinded crossover study. Took 12 overweight or obese men between 18 and 35 and gave them each a low sugar or low glycemic index milkshake. And then 4 hours later, they measured the activity of the brain region, nucleus accumbens, that controls addiction. They also measured blood sugar and hunger. Then days later, they had them back for another milkshake, but this time they switched the milkshakes. Basically, the milkshakes were supposed to be exactly the same, taste exactly the same. Everything else was the same, except for that the second milkshake was high in sugar with an 84% glycemic index. But everything else was exactly the same. The participants didn't know which milkshake was high sugar, which one was low sugar. So then they received a brain scan and blood tests for glucose and insulin after each version of the milkshake. And so what's really interesting is that without exception, they all had the same response. The high sugar or glycemic index milkshake caused a spike in blood sugar and insulin and an increase in reported hunger and cravings 4 hours after the shake. Now, makes sense, but they also looked at the brain scans for the nucleus accumbens, which again is the addiction zone, and it lit up like a Christmas tree. So it kind of shows that these foods that spike your blood sugar are biologically addictive. And also, by the way, this was, I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but this was put together by this guy at Harvard. Let's see if David Ludwig and colleagues at Harvard. I'm not sure that's right. Yep, that's the right study. So this is like a Harvard study, which is great from a proof element too. And so, yeah, the guy talks more sugar. This is good and interesting too. Our consumption has increased from 10 pounds per person in 1800 to 140 pounds per person per year today. So it's kind of a good proof element. And also 133 pounds of white or wheat flour today, which raises blood sugar more than table sugar. So I saw that and thought about carbs because that's going to be part two. I thought this was really good too. What if Kobe Bryant or LeBron James went on national television promoting the benefits of cocaine water to increase sports performance? Would you allow heroin dispensaries in your kid's school? Think heroin lollipops or morphine muffins? This is exactly what's happening in America today. And it goes on from here. So it's really interesting. Sugar and flour and too much starchy white potatoes, white rice, somewhat carbs a little bit. So that was really good. So I got that, and so I'm using that in my mechanism. I did find a brain scan image of it too, which I'll show you in a second. So yeah, so that kind of that's using it for the how it makes you fat. Now I've got that from the study. I saved the study somewhere. Where did I just save it? I will pull this back up here. Oh yeah, it's one of the good parts of this article too. Sorry, can you study? Okay. Oh yeah, it's literally right here already. Okay, so I've got this study which I'm going to save. I'm moving on another tab, and you'll see it in a second. But one other good thing from this article too that I saw. Right, Kelly Branwell from Yale's Rudd Center for Food Policy and Obesity, right, created and validated a food questionnaire to help you determine if you're a food addict. So basically, here's 5 clues. You consume certain foods even though you're not hungry because of cravings. You are about cutting down on certain foods. You feel sluggish or fatigued from overeating. You have health or social problems because of food issues, and yet you keep eating the way you do despite negative consequences. You need more and more of the foods you crave to experience any pleasure or reduce negative emotions. And so this is going to be great because I'm going to use this for a kind of a testable proof aspect in the lead of my copy probably. I'm actually going to give you a test developed by Kelly Branwell, by maybe the experts at Yale's Rudd Center for Food Policy and Obesity. That's going to help you understand if you're addicted to sugar and carbs right now. Something to that extent. So that's really good. Okay, so sugar makes you fat. It's addictive. Now that's going to be my proof that's addictive. Okay. How does it make you fat? So I Googled this and found, let's find it, or I'll just pull it back up here. I'm not sure if it's saved or not. I basically just Googled like how sugar something like that. Maybe in a different, oh god, this looks so interesting. That's super interesting. Okay. Anyway, I Googled that. I found this thing from Utah. That it's actually an interview transcript. It's with Dr. Juan Gallegos at University of Utah Hospital. And without going into too much, he basically says that this is why actually really matches what I put here. Essentially, where is it now? Right, when you have a bunch of sugar, it goes in your bloodstream, and your pancreas senses it. There's high blood sugar. It secretes insulin. Insulin will make the sugar go back into certain cells, especially liver cells, muscle cells, and other cells that you can use that as energy. But that excess energy that you have, if it's not used, it has to be stored somewhere. The way it's stored is basically in the fat cells, as well as other places that it shouldn't be, which includes like your liver, which is how you get fatty liver disease. And then on top of that, there's a lot of proof, which I'll just find later, that, insulin, right, you have to keep producing more and more insulin. Eventually, your cells become kind of deaf to the insulin. They ignore it, so you have to produce more and more insulin. And then eventually you get insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, as well as fatty liver disease. So there's my proof on sugar making you fat. So we've got addictive, we've got fat. So that's great. And then, okay, so 2, sorry, you might not realize that carbs are turned into sugar. Proof, okay. So I needed that. I think it's up here. Yeah, boom. From Harvard School of Public Health. Great, more Harvard, more proof, whatever. Basically, when people eat food containing carbohydrates, the digestive system breaks them down the digestible ones into sugar, which enters the bloodstream. As blood sugar levels rise, the pancreas produces insulin, a hormone that prompts cells to absorb blood sugar for energy or storage. Yeah, so this is kind of shit what happens when you're healthy. Basically, right, cells absorb blood sugar, levels in bloodstream begin to fall. When this happens, the pancreas starts making glucagon, a hormone that signals the liver to start releasing stored sugar. This interplay of insulin and glucagon ensures that cells throughout the body, especially in the brain, have a steady supply of sugar. So basically, I mean, right here, the digestive carbs are broken down into sugar, right? And they kind of talk about some cool stuff here. So simple carbs, complex carbs. I thought it was interesting. It's like, basically when complex carbs contain a lot of fiber, they take longer to digest, so it's less of an immediate impact on blood sugar. And it also makes sense why they're less likely to make you fat, because the insulin aspect is just storing these sugars as fat. But other so-called complex carbohydrate foods, such as white bread and white potatoes, contain mostly starch with low fiber. And so, and they go on from here. But for our purposes, this is pretty helpful, because essentially we're saying that, carbs are turned into sugar, and yeah, so perfect. Okay, so we've got the answers there. Another thing I look at is yeah, so we got that. Okay, perfect. So that's 3. So then 4 is just the truth is that this addiction is why you've been able to lose the weight you wanted, or haven't been able to lose the weight you wanted, or to keep it off for good. And then this stuff's all pretty much fine. I don't really need much research for this, but I can just show alternatives. I could probably make a mention stuff in the Dr. Hyman article, because he talks about the 2 milkshakes had the exact same calories, right? But the one had more sugar, so that one lit up people's brains like a Christmas tree. All right, so what I did here is, you can actually see, let me pull it over on the screen. This is from ABC News. It's a good proof element. This came up in response to this sort of study. I don't know if this is actually knowledge or not, but I'm going to use it as such. So you can see the response to sugar in a sugar addict's brain versus a regular person's brain. This might be different, but you can basically see how the more sugar you have, the more it's there. In fact, I have a different version of it I downloaded. I might use that version instead. Let's pull it up here. Yeah, so same thing, right? So I'm going to use that as a proof element. What I'm also going to do is, and so this is a connected V2, so this is what I made over maybe 15, 20 minutes, but I basically just copied what was in the Dr. Hyman article, I found this, which is just foods with hidden sugars in it. I took the thing from the doctor Juan Gallegos component for how sugar make you fat. Most carbs are turned into sugar, and that's from Harvard right there. And so most carbs are the same as sugar. Literally, most carbs are just made up of sugar. You can probably see the problem here. We know sugar is indisputably addictive, which means the carbs are also addictive, and that makes sense why all these problems happen. So sorry, I may have skipped one, going back to the mechanism here, but basically, I think I skipped 3 earlier. So we have one is from Dr. Hyman and Harvard studies, two Harvard things: the Harvard study on sugar being addictive, and the Harvard article on. And then the Dr. Juan Gallegos component from University of Utah Health. And then 2, we've got Harvard and that article about carbs and how carbs that aren't filled with fiber are just broken down to sugar. So then there's that kind of logic of sugar makes you fat and is addictive. Carbs are a form of sugar, so carbs make you fat and are addictive. It's logic, right? If A is true and B is true, then C is also true, right? If A, then B. If A. So, well, whatever. I don't know, man. Sorry, my brain's fried. But I think, hopefully this is valuable because it does actually some make sense to me, right? I can write it out for you guys really quick. And I can let's just put it here. That's the other notice I didn't use anything, but, right? So again, sugar makes you fat and is addictive. Carbs are most carbs you eat are broken down into sugar. Therefore, most carbs make you fat and are addictive. Now, I took advanced modern logic because I'm a philosophy major, and I think this logic is actually sound. I could go deep on that. Sugar makes you fat and is addictive. Most carbs you eat are broken down into sugar. I'm going to say they're also made up of sugars, and your body. Most carbs are made up of sugars, really all carbs. And when you eat them, they are broken down into sugar. I mean, I think it's actually better than I had before, but that's sort of like the larger thing. But yeah. So if A equals B, you may hate this one, right? If A equals B, right, then B equals C. Does that make sense? So if A equals B, it's true. Yeah, if this was like A, B, C. You might, I don't know if you like this or not, but more or less, right? This is logical. That's all I'm really trying to say. There's a logical connection on this. So that's why I look a lot, and like, where did I jump to? But again, this was like 20 minutes, and it was just pretty much everything from the Dr. Hyman article. I just sort of copy and pasted and paraphrased a little bit. So that's the whole mechanism behind the problem. Another thing I'm going to do that I thought about, right, is proof elements as well. So I was thinking about it like high amount of sugar. I'm going to do something like images. So basically you've got that, right? And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to show them pictures of candy and gummy bears and stuff. So I think I saved one. Yeah. My mouth like watered. Like I love gummies. Oh my God, I love them. I have a physical response to seeing this picture. I mean, even right now, I'm like, my mouth is becoming, there's more saliva, and my heart's racing a little bit, my legs shaking, and I can feel just sinking my teeth into a giant handful of gummies. Oh my fucking God, it'd be so good, right? And I really mean that. So then compare that to like what's a low starchy food, like legumes or something? Pile of legumes. Let's just put this right. Uh, it looks good side by side. Look at this image and like see what's your physical response to this image and what's your physical response to this image. I'm gonna do it again with like cake and brownies and stuff like that, right? Then I'm gonna do the same thing with carbs, like with pizza and carbs too. Something like world's best pizza. Find a really good looking pizza, right? Yeah, this isn't the best pizza looking pizza in the world, but sure. Like this, right? And like, what's your reaction to this? And then, what's your reaction to this? So side by side, why not, right? I keep saying right again. It's because it's probably a sign that I'm like tired. But yeah. I'm not downloading them, but Jesus Christ. There we go. Okay, I can use the computer. But the point is just I'm gonna do side by side, same thing, right? Which one looks better? This, or this. And if you're personally all super healthy already and keto adapted, fat adapted, bro, awesome. But for most people, there's a different reaction to this than this. And same thing with like a freshly baked cookie, like gooey chocolate brownie. Oh, God. This. So what I'm going to do, right, I'm talking about that, and then I'm going to use that in the proof elements. But I'm also going to talk about an addictive aspect when I get to the mechanism of solution, which I'm still going to do here in a minute. So basically my plan of action is I'm gonna take this and probably insert it into my research into this page here, so it's written pretty smoothly, and then I'm gonna get over to the mechanism behind the solution again. But yeah, and then when we talk about too, right, it's not just the it is like cutting out on sugars and carbs, and it's hard to do, and that's where the keto diet comes in. But the keto diet's hard because there's hidden sugars, and it's hard to track carbs, which is where our program comes in because it makes it easier for you to do all that. But I'm also like, let's look at like a really yummy keto cheeseburger. Let's go keto bacon cheeseburger. Most of these images are gross, but let's just find bacon cheeseburger on lettuce. Something like this, right? We'll have to figure out the best image for it. But ideally the goal is they're looking at it and they're like, oh, I'm still craving that. And it's like, yeah, exactly. And you can still eat that. So you can still eat foods you crave. There are still other foods you crave because you crave fat too. This is fat's not addictive. And you can eat a lot and it's a healthy craving and it's totally cool to crave fat. So that's kind of where we're going with this. So I am going to pause it again. I'm going to keep not looking at anything. And then I'm going to work on this mechanism stuff. So I'll come back. So, all right, I'll keep you posted. All right, so I'm back again. So I basically took what I just said I was going to do and then put it into here. So I folded step one, right? Took the Dr. Ludwig stuff again. And I added in some other things I found, like a neuroscientist at Oregon who did the same thing with fMRI scans. Same thing with this woman with national drug abuse, and this woman from Princeton. Talked about how we're eating more sugar. Dr. Hyman's whole thing about Kobe and LeBron. I love that. Mentioning that he says, oh, there's a study showing that sugar is 8 times as addictive as cocaine. And I'm like, no, I go on, but one way to experiment. And this is something I need your active participation in. In fact, we're going to do a little, it's repetitive, but I guess the mechanism. This is in the final copy. Ready? Take a look at the following picture. These are French green beans, and I want to know how you feel. Maybe thinking, oh yeah, those don't look bad, or like I should be eating more green beans. You probably look at this picture and you think, yeah, those look fine. Again, not final copy. This is me just riffing. Now when you look at the next picture, back to those gummy bears. look at this picture, look at it. How does it make you feel? Right? I talk about the watering mouth, eyes darting, basically describing an addiction. And I'm like, all right, you're not into gummies. Look at this cake. I used to die for cookies, right? Basically, your reaction to these last 3 photos, I'll probably show them side by side, different than the green beans. And then which of the foods are you thinking about right now you saw? Not the green beans, right? I'm not trying to make you, torture you, make you hungry. I'm trying to make a point, which is sugar is incredibly addictive. It makes you fat too. I'm going to explain why really quick. Dr. Gallegos, University of Utah. Explain the mechanism behind it. I have a little metaphor here that may go into the copy somewhere, which is like using an oil tank. Sorry, it's like using an oil tanker to fill up your car, right? Because you only need a few gallons, but the oil tanker has thousands of gallons or millions of gallons. I don't know if I'm thinking about like the tank, like the truck, or like a boat, probably a truck. And I'll find out what the technical term for that is, right? And show an image, right? But would imagine if the tanker just kept pumping gas in your car even after the tank was full, would spill everywhere and cause a disaster or a mess or something. So it's the same thing here. That's the metaphor I'm going with, right? The sugar has to be stored somewhere. Your body stores it as fat. Fat goes in places you'd expect. But it also leads to a disaster, and I could highlight that more. Carbs turn to sugar. I didn't mention the Harvard thing here. According to Harvard University, carbohydrates are deficient. So I'll have to make sure I include the site thing comment for myself. So basically talk about that, right? It's kind of what you saw earlier. And then this part's maybe the same. I'm going to do some comparisons of salt and chips and stuff. And then this part's the same. So now I'm going to the mechanism behind the solution. So that took about 45 minutes, I guess, but I feel pretty good about this now. I'm going to pause it, work on the mechanism of the solution, and I will come back when I'm done with that. Probably go a little bit past 5, but it's okay. All right, so 5:10 p.m. So yeah, here's my mechanism behind the solution. I kind of wrote that out. I happen to know some stuff about the keto diet, so as I'll do it easier. I will have to strengthen this a little bit, but I wanted to go and finish this up, and then I'll probably done with it for now, and I'll probably add studies either during the brief, maybe at the copy, or maybe I'll take a little time tomorrow. I have studies saved for this, honestly, but I just kind of wrote all of this here. So, all right, this part was old, but up to here, right? So basically, right, you want to break free of your addiction. Easiest way is to replace, carbs and sugars with something healthier and better. And that doesn't put you through horrible withdrawals, but what? Science shows us what millions of folks already have found. It's the best thing you can do to break free of your carb and sugar cravings, and change it to addictions, but it's replace them with fat and ketones, fats and ketones. People do this, they're following the ketogenic diet, which I'm sure you've heard of at this point, especially since it has so much buzz from most celebrities and everyday folks. You've probably heard countless stories of folks losing tremendous amounts of weight on the keto diet. You might understand what it is or how it works. You might be especially confused about those ketones I mentioned and not know what they're all about, something like that. So I'll explain. Your body needs energy, and most of us provide our bodies with that energy in the form of carbohydrates and sugars. This is what we're sold at the grocery store, low-fat carbohydrate foods. It's what our parents and teachers, many in the government, have told us to eat, and what we're addicted to. It's what the 1 trillion dollar food industry wants us to eat because they produce a lot of it. As you know, powering your body primarily on carbs and sugars is like powering your body primarily with cocaine. Sure, you get some energy from it, but the high only lasts a little bit. Then you need more cocaine to regain your energy. Plus, it disrupts your sleep, your brain, your mood, everything else. And it does long-term damage to your health too. With the keto diet, you're replacing sugars and carbs with fats and ketones are one of the purest and best energy sources for your body that's ever been discovered. Here's how the keto diet works. First, we increase our intake of fat dramatically, usually to about 60% of our diet. I'll rewrite that, and I'll make sure this is accurate. And we cut down our carbohydrates significantly from 100 grams plus per day. Many people have 200 or even 300 grams of carbs per day to under 30 grams of net carbs per day. When this happens, your body can no longer get energy from carbohydrates and sugar, so it's forced to find a different fuel source. And fortunately, your body doesn't have to look very far because thanks to God's good graces, when there are no carbs or sugars around, our bodies as she started to break down the fat, we've replaced those carbs with and turned those into ketones. The ketones I keep mentioning. Ketones are basically use of energy, yet they are more energy dense per calorie than sugar, and they also happen to be an incredibly clean, efficient fuel source. Now once your body starts producing ketones and using this for energy instead of sugar, you're said to be in a state of ketosis, and there are numerous health benefits associated with being in ketosis. First, there's the fat burning and weight loss. And basically these are what I put in proof in studies and before and after. So I'll do that here and here. Blood sugar ability, type 2 diabetes. Same thing with like heart disease, etc. Basically, this isn't, again, I can't, this doesn't have to go directly into the copy. It helps having it pretty similar, but this is what it is for now. So basically, right, carbs and sugar are so terrible, why don't we cut them out entirely? And the answer is even though we do eat a small amount, carbs are coming from foods that are high in fiber and super nutrient rich, which means that it takes you longer for your body to break them down to turn into sugar. As a result, again, I'm trying to put it here, but as a result, like basically, if I don't need this here, as a result, you can eat moderate amounts of these nutrient-rich carbs, and this is kind of my way of saying complex carbs. I'm trying to differentiate because I said some complex carbs are bad, and your insulin won't spike, your brain won't register as addictive, they won't make you get fat. It's kind of the difference between cocoa leaves and snorting cocaine. In Peru, people chew cocoa leaves at high altitude to help with stamina, focus, and to avoid altitude sickness. But it's the equivalent of having, having a cup of green tea. It's not addictive, has health benefits. Small amount of complex fiber-rich carbs are like it as well. They're fine for you and even healthy, but while chewing a few cocoa leaves a day is fine. If you do a giant line of blow, that's a different story. I don't use this language in there, but it's still fine to me. Difference between having a small amount of healthy fiber-rich nutrient carbs each day and eating 4 slices of cheese pizza. One is fine, one's terrible for your health. That's keto diet in a nutshell. But you'll find, while it sounds great, many people get frustrated and sick, confused, plateau, can't keep doing keto, they fall off the wagon. That's why I create a product. There'll be more involved in this, but that's sort of the basics. So that's it for today. I wish I'd gone further. I mean, I only spent like a couple hours on it, and I feel like now my mechanism my mechanism is all good. So tomorrow morning, I might come in and pop in some studies when I'm fresh, or I might go right to the brief. I'm going to need some studies, probably, or some kind of proof elements for the weight loss stuff. So I'll probably find some stuff to pop in there. Maybe there's article headings or like study headings, because I don't want to make this too long. I mean, if you look at the word count, it's like 3,248 words. There's a little bit of stuff at the end from earlier, but that's not really that much in the way of words. In fact, it's 207. So it's basically 3,000 words, which is kind of like, you're kind of like, damn, bro, that's a lot. And it kind of is, but this will get cut down a little bit in the sales letter. But also I take a lot of this and put it right into the sales letter. So if the average sales letter is like 6,000 or 7,000 words long, then I basically, out of this document, will get like, between 1/3 and half of my sales letter has now been kind of written. And I'll tweak it and finesse it and stuff like that. But that's pretty cool. And then think about my research component, right? That has a lot of stuff that will be put in there. And then in the brief here, we're going to put in the rest of it. So really, what's going to be missing from the sales letter at this point is a lead, although I'm going to have stuff from my research that I can put into the lead, as well as from my mechanism. The story, which I've got to figure out. I have those ideas, like the wedding cake thing, and then the science, the discovery of the solution and the science. And so that I'll figure out. I mean, what I'm probably going to do as of now, and I may change my mind tomorrow, is back to that mom's funeral, emotional stressing, and all of that kind of stuff. And, she's like not answering, the shutters are closed. Like she's like a full on living like an addict, and her friend, maybe an aunt, someone comes over and basically tells her she's an addict. And she's like, what? But then she realizes she is an addict, or she's behaving like an addict, but she's like, well, I've heard sugar is addictive, but is it really that addictive? And like I look into it, and the answer is like, yeah, here's all this crazy research. What was really surprising through my research is that, well, actually, I don't know. And then sugar makes you fat, which I kind of get, but I didn't really understand why, and here's why. That's cool. But here's what I didn't realize was that, carbohydrates, I mean, I've heard they're bad. I've heard, whatever low carb diets are good, things like that. But I never fully got it. What I didn't really realize is that it's not just that carbs can make you fat. It's that they're actually addictive too. And the reason why is because carbs are actually sugar. Here's the proof on that. And so it's the same exact thing. When you eat carbs, same thing happens, makes you fat, stores you as fat. And so now that I got it, I was looking, I'm like, all right, I know I need to break this addiction, but how? I mean, it really is an addiction, and you're probably addicted too. And so, how do we break free from this addiction and do it in an easy way where we won't relapse, where we will be effective, where where it'll be easy, and last forever. And so I found, I kept seeing stuff about the keto diet, and I thought that might be the best approach. But I was a little hesitant. I didn't really understand how it works, so I did research, and basically here's how the keto diet works. And I explained out part of like, okay, so you're addicted to sugar and carbs, you want to replace it with something, you want to replace them with fats and ketones. That's what the keto diet does, explain how it all works, the studies and the research and all that kind of stuff, and be like, so, I got it, and I'm like, okay, cool, this is how the keto diet works, but will it, work for me? And the answer was no. I tried it and struggled, failed, it was confusing, sucked, I lost 7 pounds, and I plateaued, it was shitty, blah, blah, blah. I was hungry, I did still have cravings, like what was I doing wrong? I went on the internet, looked around, found out that like a ton of other people also have these issues and these problems, and it's pretty common. So I'm like, what's the deal? Is the keto diet not legit? Does it not really work? I didn't know what to do. And then a friend of mine introduced me to a nutritionist, Dr. Danielle, and her keto system, which has been created to make going ketosis easy and staying in ketosis easy and thriving in ketosis easy. And it does it by helping you transition into ketosis, and then it equips you for real world situations too. And it's designed to help beat your cravings and things like that. So it's probably what I'm gonna do, unless I think of a better story. And so we'll think about it there. And then what I'll have to decide is what I want to do from a lead standpoint. If I want to come in really heavy with the emotional stuff, or I want to come in with like the promises, or I want to come in with something positive. And maybe that I want to test 3 leads, but we'll get to that point. So tomorrow my plan is add in, and hopefully I feel better, I'm going to drink silver, liquid silver, which I would recommend you do, by the way, antibacterial, antimicrobial, antiviral. But anyway, I'm going to drink silver. But tomorrow I'm going to do, probably add in some studies on things, and then I'm going to go to the brief and film myself doing the brief, and then that'll be done Monday. And then my goal will be, Tuesday, is that tomorrow afternoon I can start writing copy, and then basically finish it Wednesday and Thursday and be done by then. So that's my plan, and I'm going to stop recording now.